How to derive the quadratic formula. This is Kisembo Academy and thanks for tuning in. Right on your screen you're having the general form of a quadratic equation. Ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. That's the general form of a quadratic equation. Now we are going to use that general form of a quadratic equation to derive the quadratic formula. Now when we are deriving the quadratic formula, we are going to attempt to solve this general form of the quadratic equation by completing squares. So we are going to complete squares here, and through completing squares the expression we shall come with as the value of x will be the expression for the quadratic formula, the general quadratic formula. So what we do here, first of all when we are completing squares, we always have to make sure that the coefficient of x squared is 1. Now if the coefficient of x squared is not 1 or something else, it means that you're supposed to first divide through all these terms by that coefficient, so that here it is 1. So it means here in our next step we are going to divide through here by a. So we divide through by a here, by a, by a, by a, so that this a and that a are able to cancel out. You remain with x squared plus b over ax plus c over a being equal to 0. So from that point we are supposed to take this c over a, that side of the equation, so it becomes x squared plus b over a is going to be equal to negative c over a. Now this b over x, b over ax. So we look at the coefficient of x, which is b over a. Now the coefficient of b of x, which is b over a, divided by 2. If we are to divide this by 2, b over a. b over a divided by 2 will give us b over 2a. And then afterwards, so it means our next step, just like we've been doing it in our former videos, the coefficient of x here, we are supposed to divide it by 2. And b over a divided by 2 is equal to b over 2a. So after dividing this by 2, it means that the square here, our perfect square, is going to become x plus b over 2a. And this is going to become squared. It's going to be equal to negative c over a. And now we are going to add here plus the square of what we got here. We divide by 2, then what we get, we square it. And what we square it is what we add here. So this squared is going to become b squared over 4a squared. So it means that here, if we are to rearrange this, it's going to become b squared over 4a minus c over a is going to become x plus b over 2a. This whole thing is squared. So we use the square root property. We are trying to get the value of x, so we are trying to make x the subject of this formula in this whole expression. So square root on both sides, this goes with that. We shall remain with x plus b over 2a, giving us, now this becomes under the square root. Now the LCM of 4a squared and a is 4a squared. So 4a squared divided by 4a squared is 1. 1 times b squared is actually b squared. Then 4a squared divided by a is 4a. 4a times c is negative 4ac. So it means our next step here is actually x plus b over 2a is giving us, all this thing is under the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. So at this point, so this term is going to move to that side. And when it does, we remain with our value of x this way as being negative b over 2a under the square root. Now remember, this square root is either a positive or a negative. So it's positive or negative b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. And of course this will become negative b plus or minus, here the square root of of this whole thing is the same as the square root of the numerator and the square root of the denominator. So to find the square root of the denominator, the square root of 4 is 2 and the square root of a squared is a. So this downer part will simply become 2a. So what we remain with here is under the square root of b squared minus 4ac, divide all that by 2a. Because the square root of 4 is 2, the square root of a squared is a. This is over 2a. And of course here the LCM here is going to become, when we add, this is either plus or minus. So either plus or minus. To find the square root of this, to simplify this further, the LCM of this, to simplify this further, is 2a. 2a divided by 2a is 1, 1 times negative b is negative b, plus or minus 2a divided by 2a is 1, 1 times this whole issue, this whole bit is going to give you the square root of b squared minus 4ac. That is going to become x. So it means that according to this quadratic formula of ours, when we are solving quadratic equations, we always have two solutions. Either our value of x, this means that our value of x will either be negative b plus the root of this, plus the root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a, or our value of x will be negative b minus this, minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, divide all that by 2a. So this is how we derive the quadratic formula, and it is the general formula we shall be using to solve a few quadratic equations. In our next video, we will be looking at how to solve a few quadratic equations using this quadratic formula. Thanks for tuning in. For more of these videos, I encourage you to subscribe. For Kisembo Academy, this is Arnold Kuramia.